Oh, look at her.
Oh, she's still so comfy in her box.
Okay, I'm gonna start filming now. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello. If you are returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate you. So today, I'm doing another history lesson style video like I did with Tess last month. But this month is about Sonalee Rashatwar, or as they're more commonly known on the Instagram, Fat Therapist. And just a disclaimer, because I know I already just had to do that because we are within the first minute of the video, there are probably going to be a lot of censored words in this video because I was just watching a Stephanie Harlow video today and she put it perfectly. She was like, because apparently YouTube's okay with violence and Jake Paul, but they don't like the discussion of actual real topics. So yeah. Anyways, my friend Kayla Shea, she did a video on Sonalee as well. I had known of Sonalee like for a really long time, having been in the fat acceptance space for as long as I was, but I didn't know just how like unhinged and how horrible like all of their takes are. And so I messaged Kayla and I was like, yo, I want to do a video on them too. Like, just so you know, like I'm not copying you, like I'll give you credit where credit's due, all that good stuff. Kayla really inspired me to do this video, and Kayla's original 2 videos will be linked down below. When I say that I was expecting this video to be about the same level of messy as like Tess's was, like I'm not kidding. But also when I say that I was just flabbergasted at the stuff that I found out and the stuff that this person has said and the stuff that this person shills, I'm also not kidding, because holy crap, it is insane. So I'm just gonna issue a huge overarching content warning on this video for SA, the R word, which I'll put up on the screen here. I really hate that I can't use like the actual words because like I feel like it takes things away, but whatever. Talk of racism, talk of anti-Semitism, EDs, and probably every other content warning one would need on a video, because we are gonna cover a whole lot of topics today. And I do want to say that a lot of Sonalee's rhetoric has to do with SA, and I've talked about this before on my channel a little bit, but I want to put out like a bias that I have when I'm presenting all of this information. I am a survivor of SA. It happened a couple years ago. I have done an immense amount of work both internally and with therapy, and everybody in my life that I want to know knows about it. And so I feel more than comfortable opening up a little bit more about it on here. And so I am going into this whole thing with that lens, and I think that's one of the main reasons why so much of what this person says grinds my gears so much. I just wanted to put that out here as well. But before we get into any of the craziness that we are going to talk about in this video, and trust me, it's a lot, I want to introduce a new partner to the channel that's helping me bring you more content, Swagit. If you like my videos and you like earning extra money, then this is definitely for you. Swagit is a short form video app that you can earn money just by using. The best part is that it's completely free to join, and you get points for joining. You can then give points to your favorite creators like me if you feel like it, and then the app turns around and doubles the points that you donated and gives it back to you to exchange for things like PayPal cash, gift cards, that kind of stuff. But I've currently been using Swagit to post extra content for you guys, like get ready with me's that are quicker, maybe what I eat in a day is more cat content, because obviously like who does not want that. It's just a great place for me to do more short form casual video content for you guys, and you guys can earn money while using it as well, which is like, it's a win-win. And I should also mention that while I've been using the app, the content that's on it is a lot more like family friendly and just kind. So like you won't go from seeing like a video of puppies to like something really awful in the like one swipe like some other short form video apps. So it's a great place for when your noodle needs a break, like let's say after this video, because trust me, it's about to get really heavy. So make sure to go click the link down in my comments and follow me at Megan and Swagit so you can get access to all of the new content that I'm going to bring you over there. Thank you so much to Swagit for starting to be a partner to the channel and helping me out, because every partner really does help support my channel. And again, just don't forget, click the link down in the comments if you want to check it out. Download the app and come follow me at Megan and Swagit. I'm so excited to see you there, and I'm so excited to interact with more of you because that is my favorite thing to do. And yeah, thank you guys so much for interacting with my content so brands like Swagit want to keep partnering with me. So yes, thank you again to Swagit, and let's get back into the video. So who is Sonalee Rashatwar? First and foremost, Sonalee uses they, he pronouns, and I don't care who we're talking about, we're always going to respect pronouns in this household. According to their website, Sonalee Rashatwar is an award-winning clinical social worker, sex therapist, adjunct lecturer, and grassroots organizer. They are based in Philadelphia, but also licensed to practice in New Jersey. And according to their website, they are a quote, super fat, queer, bisexual, non-binary therapist and co-owner of the Radical Therapy Center, specializing in treating sexual trauma, diet trauma, racial or immigrant trauma, South Asian family abuse, while offering positive sexual health care. And this is going to be a lot, and I'm probably going to speed it up, but I want to read from their words on their website what they claim their areas of expertise are. Because keep in mind, this person is a licensed mental health professional specializing in sex therapy. So the first area of expertise is
sexual colonization. And they said, as an immigrant and community organizer working across cultural and ethnic borders, I offer unique insight into what was residual colonialism continues to warp sexuality norms. Much of what we experience as acceptable sexuality has been shaped by colonialism. I develop cutting-edge workshops on how gender, sexual behavior, and health are marginalized by these interlocking systems of oppression.
The next one is South Asian sexuality.
And they say, much of my graduate academic experience was spent writing about the immigrant sexual experience and unlearning dominant sexual norms. I curate workshops for all audiences to better understand South Asian individual families living within the North American diaspora. I build workshops for clinicians to understand South Asians as a special clinical population due to their specific migration histories based on caste, class, religion, race, and nationality. These workshops include an uncommon assessment of South Asian family systems, sexualities, and ethnosexual identity development.
The next one is disability, justice, and healthism, and they go on to say,
an accessible therapeutic space is an important aspect of trauma recovery. Disability is a natural part of the human experience, which is why I offer a distinctive culture of acceptance, freedom of stigma, and release of shame for all of my clients. All bodies are good bodies. All bodies deserve love, care, and respect from a clinician who is constantly working to disrupt the field of intersecting disability justice into all treatment modalities. The construct of health is a stick used to beat marginalized people with, especially fat people. This is why I integrate politicized conversations into my therapeutic work. Let's work together to unlearn the ways we are using healthism to measure our own humanity and worthiness.
Decolonial sexualities.
Sexuality is morphed by the pressures of compounding oppressions, which is why I offer solution-focused workshops that affirm the colonized experience and contribute to the radical imagination of our decolonial sexual features. We must unlearn the ways we have been forced to exist within what is considered normal and begin to imagine the ways we can flourish outside these pressurized systems. By aggregating individual forms of sexual resistance, I am able to weave together workshops explaining broader ideas of collective sexual liberation. Centering conversations around pleasure and body liberation, we can better imagine how joy will lead us to revolution.
Next one is sexual trauma.
For 10 years, I've worked with individuals ages 13 and up, put a pin in that as well, who have survived experiences of domestic and sexual violence. As a sex therapist, I have highly specialized training to address sexual trauma and sexual healing. I have additional expertise with intimate partner violence and sexual violence from years of clinical nonprofit work and supervision. At the intersection of warm comfort and radical acceptance, my therapeutic orientation feels more like a post-trauma doula. I provide a non-medical guided experience after sexual trauma, using psychological and emotional support to help clients adjust to their new realities. I offer a unique focus to trauma recovery as a sex educator by centering recovery from shame through pleasure. Learning to regain access to pleasure is an often overlooked aspect of sexual trauma recovery.
And the last one that they say is an area of expertise for them is fat positive wellness.
I come from an exclusively pro-body and anti-diet perspective. This means I will never use food moralism to tell you to replace foods you love with foods you hate. I will never use intentional weight loss as a therapeutic goal. I will never collude with fat phobia in our therapeutic work. Body autonomy is paramount. Let's weave together body acceptance, body love, body acceptance and body love to heal image trauma from within. This involves rejecting external pressure from diet culture to recentering around our body's inner compass. I also curate workshops for clinicians to learn to understand fat phobia as a clinical issue and how to treat fat trauma.
According to their website, they have been associated and or featured in I think they've spoken at Princeton University. They've been featured in New York Magazine. Planned Parenthood has partnered with them in some way. Penn State has partnered with them in some way. Playboy magazine has partnered with them. Showtime and HBO. And keep a pin in the Showtime thing because we're going to talk about that in wild detail later. So I hadn't heard of their therapy center, and so I wanted to look into that a little bit more, and naturally it was linked on their website. First and foremost, the Radical Therapy Center does not accept insurance, but it offers super bills, so if you have insurance, you can submit reimbursement. And I know there's like a whole thing with what it takes for private therapists to get into an insurance network. I know it costs a lot of money for them. I know it's quite the process, but I still wanted to mention that they do not accept insurance. Because individual sessions cost $150 to $200 per 50-minute session, and couple sessions are $200 per 50-minute session. I think I missed a price range there. Then underneath the payment section of their website, they ask that those of, quote, financial means to pay the full fee or more, so that way they can offer more low-cost therapy options to people who need them, which, as objectively is an okay thing, but I think that adds a lot of pressure and puts a lot of responsibility to clients who are coming to you for therapy. But that was just my thought and opinion on that. And it says that they are also working on creating a therapy fund and free therapy spots for local BIPOC activists, but they state that prices may be subject to change in the future. And they also offer like a bunch of different workshops and like specific kinds of like therapy classes, and some of them are groups, some of them are not. But the three that I wanted to talk about, or that I wanted to showcase here, is one, food as a viable coping tool. That's a workshop. Our Stories Through Food is also a workshop, and Diet Culture and Body Image is also a workshop. And to top it all off, one of the main slogans that you can find on Sonalee's Therapy Practices website is that their mission, it's, quote, our mission is simple, to politicize your therapy. So the reason I wanted to read all of that information to you is I just really wanted to set up what Sonalee is all about, right? So I'm obviously like as white as can be from the Midwest, and like I cannot speak in regards to their work revolving around like South Asian traumas and family dynamics and sexualities and all that kind of stuff, nor can I really speak on the colonialism aspect of it because, quite frankly, I just don't feel like I know enough about the topic to lend any input on it. And I'm gonna be honest, the branding and all of that stuff on their websites, on both of their websites and their Instagram, is super cute and is super trendy. There's such open and seemingly accepting language used in all of the expertise sections that I could easily see like pre-weight loss me like really being attracted to Sonalee as a therapist if I was in their area of practice. Hell, I think there's even a lot of like thin people who maybe believe a lot of fat acceptance talking points or consider themselves a fat ally, who would also find Sonalee's talking points really attractive and probably consider them for therapy if they were in their area. So imagine being one of those people, being someone trying to figure out how to navigate the world with their relationship with food and like their relationship with their own body and looking for a therapist that kind of specializes in these things, going to Sonalee's website, then going to their Instagram and seeing posts like this. The desire to eradicate the existence of fat bodies can also be called eugenics. Diet culture and fat phobia are forms of sexual violence. And I wanted to read the post that accompanies this one because I think it's really important.
In my training to become a sex therapist, I was offered an expanded understanding of sexuality
And I'm gonna have to censor some things, I'm sorry.
beyond P and V intercourse, which is often what sex is diminished to when we're still assuming cisgender heterosexual sex is the best and only valid sex. Sexuality includes biopsychosocial spiritual lens,
That is all one word.
using the circles of sexuality model, and in parentheses they just put Google. There's an entire circle on sexualization, which covers issues like flirting, seduction, sexual harassment, media, and sexual assault. In my workshops with sexuality professionals, I explain how the harm experienced by fat phobia and diet culture belong in this circle. The same way white supremacy affects the way folks of color experience their bodies, we need to understand these as things that impact sexuality. Fat phobia involves a kind of inescapable surveillance that affect the way we fear eating in public, dressing for our shape, speak in ways that take up less space, or avoid PDA the rest of our lives. It's not like street harassment, aka fat calling, where it ends when you go back indoors. Fat phobia follows you anywhere there's another fat phobic person nearby, and it can also become internalized where we become our own fat phobic police. Sexual harassment is defined as behavior characterized by the making of unwelcome and inappropriate sexual remarks or physical advances in a workplace or other professional or social situation. The practice of sexual harassment can become sexual boundary violation. A child cannot consent to a diet the same way a child cannot consent to sex. The behavior of passing on fat phobia to another person is harmful, and as a sex therapist, I identify the ways fat phobia impacts our ability to experience sexual liberation. Folks struggling with internalized fat phobia may avoid emotional or physical intimacy altogether, convincing themselves they are undesirable or undeserving of pleasure, because capitalism does not value the fat body as productive or desirable. They may only eat health foods as a way to deny pleasure. They may struggle with assertive communication and taking up space in conversations and friendships, and they may be unable to pleasure themselves, or orgasm with others, or enjoy PD.
This post, about equating fat phobia to sexual violence really made me worry because, like I said, I am someone who has experienced SA myself, and I would not wish that kind of trauma or the kind of psychological work it took to finally be able to kind of move forward from it onto anyone who does not need to go through it. And to me, this comparison is absolutely absurd and could open up an entire can of worms for somebody that it just doesn't need to be opened for. And while yes, therapy sometimes requires you to access deeper traumas and unpack deeper things to then move forward in more surface level things, things that maybe you didn't even know you had to work through. To me, this isn't the same thing because I just don't think it's a valid comparison. It has the possibility of just being very, very harmful, and I feel like making other people's mental health worse if they never thought of it like this before. And yeah, like I said, sometimes maybe thinking of things you haven't thought of them before could be a good thing in therapy. That's kind of the point of therapy. But this kind of thing is just a whole different ball game, and I just really feel like nobody should have to open that door if they don't have to, if they've never actually been SA'd or experienced anything like it. I just don't think that's necessary. And while we're on the topic of their Instagram posts, I found this one. Therapist collusion with weight loss goals is unethical. And so I'm going to read the post that goes with this one as well.
Rad therapist tip number 1. Stop colluding with your client's desire to shrink their bodies, hearts, minds, emotions, spirits, dreams, and imagination. Intentional weight loss has a 95 to 97% failure rate and causes weight cycling, which can explain any negative health effects of fatness. Induced famine, in parentheses dieting, creates metabolic dysregulation and stresses the body. Reasons I do not collude with anyone's desire to lose weight. It encourages eating disorders, body dysmorphia, self-hate. Capitalism makes money off us believing we are inadequate. 80% of body size is determined by genetics. Only 20% is diet and exercise. My body is an heirloom I inherited, my ancestral technology and wisdom. I come from a long line of fat people. I am supposed to be fat. Our bodies are a natural range of weights they like to be in parentheses set point theory, which is why we regain weight after induced famine, because our body is trying to keep us alive. Body diversity is a good thing. Bodies are supposed to come in all shapes and sizes. Even if we all ate and exercised the same, we would look different. Obsession with weight loss is a form of social control, so we won't have brain space to abolish the state. Devil face emoji. Conformity is the enemy of body autonomy. When we give up our ability to self-determine, we let someone else take the wheel. The origins of U.S. fat phobia are based on the invention of white civilized / black savage binary.
Get it out. It's okay.
What? Where did that correlation come from? Is this person Ron Swanson?
Don't insult Ron Swanson like that. Jeez. Damn. Don't do my boy Ron like that.
He plays a phenomenal gay man.
I know.
Dieting is racist against brown people.
Wait for it.
Huh?
Wait for it.
Thinness is a white supremacist beauty ideal. We must ask what they believe what they are trying to achieve with weight loss. If confidence, better relationship with fat-phobic family, less body or joint pain, more dates, better clothes, try actually building confidence, body boundaries with family, strengthening joints, and treating pain, trying new dating techniques, and finding niche fashion brands or working with a local tailor, because that's accessible to everybody. That was a snarky note by me, sorry. Fat people deserve to exist. We deserve to take up space. We deserve to have society shift to fit us instead of us having to assimilate to white supremacy. When we assimilate into white supremacy, we leave the structure intact and none get free. When we stay fat, we free ourselves and others.
All of this to say, the reason I included all these Instagram posts is the first issue that I take with Sonalee and their beliefs and online presence and comes from the well-known fact, based on my brief knowledge of the practice, it's that therapists should be doing whatever they can to remain as unbiased as possible. And Sonalee makes every effort to not do that. And I've been in and out of therapy my whole life. I've been consistently in it for the last 3 years. And while yes, like finding a therapist that you mesh with is super duper important, like it's very important. For me, I always want my therapist to be a woman, and I want them to support the LGBTQ community because I am part of that and my partner is part of that. And it's a big part of my life. I would like us to be on like the same kind of like political spectrum, so that way if things that are going on in the country are stressing me out, I can talk it out with my therapist. But that's like the maximum of what I look for in a therapist. And I've actually had the most success with my current therapist because she pushes my internal biases a little bit, like not by pushing her own beliefs on me, but more in a way where she like objectively asks me to think about why I think certain things or why I feel certain ways, to get to the bottom of whatever is affecting me at that time. The thing with Sonalee, like advising therapists to not collude with anyone's desire to lose weight, because according to them, it like supports white supremacy and encourages EDs, body dysmorphia, self-hate, etc., to me is basically telling a therapist to impose their personal beliefs and biases onto a client to think like they do and ultimately get them to change their mind. And from a very complex and detailed Google search, which entailed me just typing, "should therapists be biased?" it'll leave you with a multitude of articles and studies, all saying that therapists having different fundamental beliefs and biases than their client can cause challenges in that relationship. Then a lot of them proceed to go on to give therapists tips on how to challenge these things and within themselves and how to move forward in a situation like that. And after reading the list of workshops that Sonalee offers at their therapy practice, I couldn't help but think of like the extremely negative effects it could have on somebody who goes to them for therapy. Like, I just thought of like a person with an ED going to Sonalee because for some reason they identify with what Sonalee talks about, going to Sonalee's workshop about using food as a viable coping mechanism, how much of a detrimental effect that could have. Well, yes, like many dietitians will tell you that using food as an emotional coping mechanism is okay and very human in moderation because we do get some sort of comfort feeling from food. It's not something that should be taught in a workshop by anybody or to anybody. That should be a very specific kind of situation. And yes, Sonalee does have newspaper articles on their website to things that they have been featured in, like New York Times articles or Philadelphia Inquirer articles, which could lead potential clients to gather more information about Sonalee's own beliefs and thought processes. But when I went to go look at them, they were behind a paywall. So you either had to pay to get access to either the New York Times or the Philadelphia Inquirer articles. Anyways, I have so much more to cover with Sonalee, and this was like just getting everything set up. So let's just keep it pushed and get into some of the biggest controversies surrounding this person.
And I truly believe that a child cannot consent to being on a diet the way a child cannot consent to having sex. That is why I identify what I experienced as a child as non-consensual diets. This statement got me in a little bit of hot water because folks feel like we can't call things sexual violence if they don't include an experience of assault. But I experience diet culture as a form of assault because it impacts the way that I experience my body. You cannot, after leaving this room, continue to call yourself progressive or leftist or radical or a Marxist or a communist or a socialist or an anarchist and still hold on to fat-phobic values. Because fat phobia is tied into ableism, fat phobia is tied into classism, fat phobia is tied into capitalism, into this understanding that a system is telling us that there is an inherent rank and hierarchy of body worthiness. And we cannot continue to hold on to fat phobia and continue to call ourselves radical in any means. It is not radical to be fat phobic.
So in 2019, Sonalee spoke at St. Olaf College, and I think it was in the realm of like the gender studies department, and they said that it was on a topic of radical fat liberation. But in this talk, they made some extremely outlandish claims. The first of which is they said, "I truly believe that a child cannot consent to being on a diet the same way a child cannot consent to having sex." And then they go on to say, "I experience diet culture as a form of assault because it impacts the way that I experience my body. We should be critical of the use of science and production of knowledge to continue promoting this idea that certain bodies are fit, able, and desirable. Is it my fatness that causes my high blood pressure, or is it my experience of weight stigma?" They then connected the science suggesting that obesity is unhealthy to Nazism, saying that, quote, "fat-phobic science is, quote, often actually eugenic science, and eugenic science is Nazi science." And if all of this was not absurd enough, then this next part should really push you over the edge. So this all took place, like I said, in 2019, and this was after the mass shooting in Christchurch, New Zealand, where a mosque was the target. So after saying, and that's just for context, so after saying all of these things, Sonalee went on to say, "I do not think it's surprising that the man who shot up Christchurch, New Zealand was also a fitness instructor," Rashatwar said. After making this claim, they added that the shooting is a clear communication that there's still an idealized body. Nazis really love this idea of an idealized body, and so it makes a lot of sense to me that a fitness instructor might also think about an idealized body in this thin white supremacist way. To all of this, I say, bullshit. So I posted about this on my community tab, but while I was researching this video, I just finally had it with fat activists comparing fat struggles and quote unquote oppression to that of actually legitimately marginalized, in this instance, what the Jewish people went through in the literal Holocaust, but also the BIPOC, LGBTQ+, and disabled community. And while I can absolutely recognize that intersectionalities do exist amongst all of these groups of people, it's not appropriate to me to compare your fat struggles to those of BIPOC, LGBTQ, disabled people, because it's simply just not the same thing. And I'm making a video about this directly after I'm done filming this one, and so hopefully that will be up soon after this one. and I go deeper, much deeper into that topic in that video. Being that they had the audacity to say that even a sliver of the perpetrator of the Christchurch shootings motivation had to do with fat people in ideal body types is absolutely abhorrent, and I cannot even fathom how they didn't pull a muscle with that level of mental gymnastics that they had to perform. In regards to comparing diet culture to literal assault, I also call bullshit on that one. I've talked about this in previous videos, how like having your weight be a constant topic of conversation since you can remember like your whole life can honestly be like a traumatizing thing in how it's done. Like it was for me growing up, but having gone through that and SA, I can easily say that I would take diet talk for the rest of my life over re-experiencing what happened to me with my SA, because they just don't have the same effect, at least on me. And so I would really implore Sonalee to do some internal work on themselves as to why they draw what I believe to be extreme false equivalencies between diet culture and SA. So Sonalee has a lot to say about dating preferences, and I came across this video in my research, and I wanted to feature it here because they really say some very interesting things. The video is called "Fat Phobia is Not a Dating Preference," in which they say things like the typical statement of like, if you have a dating preference that like isn't dating fat people, not only are you fat phobic, but you're also racist. But then they continue to say things like this.
So my challenge to you is, don't hide behind the excuse of sexual preference. If you're going to tell me the list of reasons why you don't date X person for Y reasons, just name it for what it is. Say that you're fat phobic. Say that you're anti-black. Say that you're struggling with some type of racism against a certain nationality or ethnicity. Let me know that you're xenophobic. Let me know that you're transphobic. Let me know that you're struggling with some misogynoir. Let me know that you don't date people with addiction because you are really affected by addiction stigma. Let me know that you're whorephobic and that you don't date sex workers. Let me know that you're anti-native and that you don't date indigenous people. Let me know that you're anti-Dalit, Bahujan, or Adivasi and that you do not date people who are not upper caste. Hindus. Let me know that you are actually really like elite classes and you don't date poor people. Let me know that you're actually super ableist and that's why you don't date disabled people. Let me know that you're a super duper Islamophobic and that's why you don't date Muslims. Don't hide behind the sexual preference label. Don't hide behind this understanding that you are somehow hardwired to never be attracted to Muslims. No. Please acknowledge the cultural climate that is Islamophobic that is informing that sexual preference. It is not a hardwiring. Your DNA does not know who a Muslim is. If you're watching this video and you're like, shit, I think I'm struggling with fat phobia because I will not date someone who is fat, or I am realizing that I do not experience attraction towards fat bodies. I don't find them desirable, I don't find them beautiful, I don't find them, even in artful ways, attractive. What I am not telling you, as a sex therapist, as an activist, as a fat person, what I am never telling you to do is to human experiment on people by dating them and working through your fat phobia with fat people, or whatever X group of people you are wanting to work through your bigotry. But please don't do that. You will harm the individuals that you're dating, even if you don't intend to. What you can do instead, however, instead of human experimenting, is doing things like, trying some porn or erotica with different bodies. Notice what feelings are coming up for you. Are you looking at porn that is reflective of your body or the bodies of individuals who you want to be attracted to? Why or why not? So I often work with clients who are fat, who are struggling with internalized fat phobia, and what they notice is that they're often watching porn of thin-bodied individuals, of thin, skinny, slim people. And when I ask them, why is that? When we interrogate that further, sometimes it is because they have a hard time finding and eroticizing fat bodies. So an exercise that we often do together is by intentionally looking for with fat bodies in order to internally interrogate and ask ourselves and have this dialogue with ourselves of, hey, what's coming up for me when I watch this fat porn? Am I feeling disgust? Am I feeling aroused? Am I surprised by that arousal? And how can I challenge myself to find, 2 to 3 attractive qualities about this fat body? How can I look at this fat, attractive, aroused body in this erotica, in this porn, in literature that I might be reading? And how can finding gratitude or desirability in that fat body help me to find like gratitude, peace, neutrality, stillness from my own body?
So first off, I just want to say that like I can understand where they're coming from with the race thing, like having just like a hard stop at dating people of certain races. Like I think that is a conversation that can be had. That's about where my agreement with them stops. When it comes to dating preferences, there are just so many things that factor into those for everybody, but ultimately it's about finding someone who fits in your life just as much as you fit into theirs. When they started talking about how you have internalized addiction stigma for not wanting to date an addict, that's when I really started to make a lot of weird faces, because wow. In the instance of addiction, that's a mental illness, that's a disease, and ultimately it's like up to you if you want to take that on as a partner in your life, and that could depend on a huge number of variables, like where they are in their recovery, how it can fit into your life, etc. And I'm saying this as someone who has dated an addict before. It's not always fun and it's not always easy. But if it goes on for a while and then it all of a sudden explodes and becomes something that you don't want it to be, it can be even harder to leave. The ending of that relationship for me was like one of the most traumatic, like romantic dating experiences I've had, for a multitude of reasons. And I actually have a really old video where I talk about it in more detail, so I'll link that up in the card somewhere. But at the end of the day, like, you like who you like, and you like who fits into your life. And I'm gonna give you a piece of advice that my dad always gave me when I was dating. And he said that if they don't fill your happy cup, then like what good are they? Meaning your partner should primarily exist to make you happy and add something substantial to your life. And I'm not saying the kinds of people that Sonalee listed cannot do that for somebody. It's just that not everyone is made for everybody, and that's okay. And nobody should be forced to form a connection or a preference if they don't want to. And it all kind of boils down to the idea as well that like it's not your job to fix somebody or nurture somebody in hopes that love would come out of it someday. And ultimately, I think that's what they're trying to insinuate, because like that's how I perceived it. And that's an impossible level of pressure to put on somebody. As for the recommendation of using corn to explore your preference, and as Sonalee was essentially suggesting, to force yourself to feel a certain way about fat bodies, well, I can absolutely get behind the idea of using corn and erotica as like an exploration technique. I really worry about the way that Sonalee so flippantly suggested this on the internet for anybody to see. Kayla pointed this out in her video too, but a good majority of like online porn is not ethically made and also is not realistic by any stretch of the imagination for what that experience could be like in real life. So like I don't totally disagree with this recommendation, but coming from a licensed sex therapist, I was really disappointed that they didn't include the additional nuance of making sure that it's like ethically made porn, or to also know that like the things depicted in it probably aren't going to be how it's actually going to happen in real life. So it might help you get an idea of like what being with a person of whatever you're watching might be like, but ultimately like you will kind of have to quote human experiment, like Sonalee called it, which is an awful way to word it, because that could potentially come with like a ton of guilt for whoever's seeking this help out. It could include like physical in-person experimentation with somebody else, to really understand what you like and what works for you. But at the end of the day, you should not be forcing yourself to feel attracted to somebody, to feel feelings for anybody, because that's just not how that works, and it's most likely not going to end well in my experience anyway. Okay, so here's the big one, the Bill Cosby thing. And this is the thing that I did not know happened until I saw Kayla's video on Sonalee. And after I heard this, I was fucking heated. I thought maybe my own internal biases might have contributed to my heatedness about this, but Kayla felt the same way, and it seems that enough other people felt the same way to the point where Sonalee has now a pinned post on their Instagram with a, in my opinion, very poor apology for the situation. So if you don't know what happened, here's what happened. For those that don't know, Bill Cosby, a very popular American actor, was sentenced to 10 years in state prison after being found guilty of drugging and assaulting a women's basketball player in his home in 2004. I'm pretty positive that more women also came out after this initial victim did, but that was what he was sentenced for. If you guys know anything more, please feel free to correct me down below. I don't think I was really in the mental space to learn about that case when it happened, and so yeah. Fast forward to last year, Showtime came out with a docuseries called We Need to Talk About Cosby, in which Sonalee was interviewed in it, to which they made this absolutely abhorrent statement.
If we actually grappled with the fact that sex negativity is what causes this type of behavior, then we could create a world where in a idyllically sex positive world, someone is able to pay conscious women to come and be drugged so that I can get my kink out, my fetish on having sex with unconscious people. There's a consensual way to do that.
Now, before I even say anything about the statement, I want to read their apology and also show it on screen, because that's also very important to what I'm about to talk about in a minute. Formal apology for my Bill Cosby comment. In episode 4 of We Need to Talk About Cosby, at 32 minutes and 43 seconds, I say, quote, "If we actually grappled with the fact that sex negativity is what causes this type of behavior, then we could create a world where, in an idyllically sex-positive world, someone is able to pay conscious women to come and be drugged so that I can get my kink out, my fetish of having sex with unconscious people. There is a consensual way to do that." They go on to say, a culture of sex negativity does not create the conditions for our word. It creates the conditions for sex shame. Cosby is not a case of sex shame. I endorsed violence against sex workers with these words, and I am so sorry. Sex workers should be treated with respect. Consent is vital as it is in any other sexual encounter. I should not have discussed consensual non-consent in kink and BDSM in the context of Cosby. Our word is not a form of sexual deviance. Our word is an abuse of power. I want to practice in a mental health field where sex workers can work alongside sex therapists to rehabilitate problematic sexual behaviors, but this vision does not belong in a conversation about our word or Cosby. Our word is about power, not consensual desire. A person cannot consent to sex once they are incapacitated. Consent requires the ability to be withdrawn, and using substances to the point of unconsciousness limits this ability. This post is not discussing the consensual use of substances during sex. Being given substances without consent is violence. Cosby is an example of our word, not BDSM or kink. This apology is intentionally not addressing the morality or validity of abuse kinks. As a survivor, I do not pathologize the existence of abuse kink. I am sorry to everyone I hurt with my comment and in action. I took this opportunity rather than passing it on to a sex therapist who is Black. I understand why I was wrong and appreciate the time you took to read this. A special thanks to my community who held me accountable, in parentheses, with love, and trusted me to release this apology when I was ready. And when you go to the comments, they are limited, so I'm pretty sure anybody who doesn't follow them or something, whatever their settings are, can't comment on it, so that's cool. So here's the thing. Yes, I am aware that consensual non-consent does exist, and many people are able to do it in a very healthy, communicative way where nobody feels violated at the end of it. But in the context of talking about the Bill Cosby case, that is completely irrelevant. And the fact that Sonalee, a licensed therapist, a sex therapist had the audacity to even suggest that quote solution in the context of Bill Cosby is, again, just like inexcusable. A good portion of what happened to me happened while I was sleeping or on the verge of being asleep. I also had alcohol in my system, and so I was very much in a state where I could not give consent or remove consent. And I have had to do a tremendous amount of work in therapy to move on from that experience and be able to talk about it, but I'm here and I'm proud of myself. So the fact that Sonalee, again, a licensed mental health professional, suggested that consenting to using drugs and to incapacitate someone to quote get your kink out was even remotely what consent is mind-boggling to me, and I just can't get over it, and I honestly don't think I ever will. And again, in the context of the Bill Cosby case, it was absolutely ridiculous to even go there. And also, Kayla and I were talking about this separately, but if Sonalee could make such a leap on something that the public could just go watch, it was a national, like, anybody can watch it. If you have a Showtime subscription, you can watch this docuseries. The fact that they could make such a leap in a show that's that public, I don't even want to imagine what they are saying to their clients of the ages 13 and up in private. Regarding just the apology as it stands by itself, it was so odd to me and came off as like too performative and like pretty. Like even the way the text is formatted in the actual post is pretty. And I work in marketing and social media, graphic design, and all of that kind of stuff. And if someone were to even ask me to type what Sonalee said in that docuseries over a like aesthetically pleasing graphic, it would make me feel so icky. Because like from a marketing standpoint, if you're issuing an apology, you want it to be as bare bones, as straight to the point as possible, and then figure out how to move forward from there. Making it look good should be like the least of your concerns. The next issue I took with the apology is that Sonalee really only apologized to like two groups of people, sex workers and like the BDSM community, which yes, they absolutely deserve an apology. But then at the end, they just mentioned like, oh, I'm sorry to those I hurt, to account for everybody else outside of those two groups of people who may have been hurt or triggered by this comment. And it also gave me the vibes that they only apologized because they got hate. They got so much hate for saying what they did. Again, coming from a licensed mental health professional, I'm sorry to those I hurt is not a sufficient apology. I've talked about this before in other videos and people are like, what are you talking about? That is a good enough apology. And the crux of like a good, efficient apology is just owning what you did and moving on. Saying I'm sorry to those I hurt or sorry to those I may have hurt puts like too much responsibility on the reader to then do more work as to why they may or may not be hurt by what this person did. And so something more like what I said was irresponsible and inappropriate in the context of the show. It was unacceptable and I am extremely sorry would be a little bit better than I'm sorry to anybody I hurt, in my opinion. So that's the Bill Cosby thing, and that is like the end of this video. I honestly don't know how to end this, because like I said, I knew I was about to jump into a huge pile of doo-doo researching this person, but when I actually started to research it, I truly did not expect it to get just as triggering and unhinged as it was. If you made it this far, please leave any heart emoji down in the comments, because just make it colorful, make it pretty, make it cute, because I feel like we could all use that right now. And let me know what your thoughts are on all of this down below, because let me tell you, I really want to know. Thank you so much again to Swagit for partnering with me on this video. And thank you all again for continuing to engage with my content so that brands continue to want to work with me. It will never not be weird to me when that happens. Oh, it's another kitty! Oh, palette cleanser. Oh, look at this. It's like boop, 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 boop. Thank you. But yeah, it'll never not be weird for me when brands want to work with me, because I still just see myself as just me. I don't see myself as anybody particularly like unique or whatever. So yeah, it just means the world. So thank you all so much. Be sure to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, drink your water, take your meds. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, which is also probably going to be really heavy, and I'm sorry in advance. Okay, bye. I love you so much.